Don't open that door. Rain slammed against the windshield like fists, fierce and endless, as Maya gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands. Her vision blurred, not from the storm, but from the tears she had held back all night. The headlights barely lit the road ahead, but she didn't dare slow down. She couldn't. Not with Lily in the back seat. Not with the bruises fresh on her skin. Not with her husband somewhere behind them. A little girl whimpered softly, a blanket wrapped around her small shoulders, her eyes wide and scared. "It's okay, baby," Maya whispered. "We're almost safe." She had no idea where they were. No plan, no map, just a credit card, a half-packed duffel bag, and a burn in her chest that wouldn't go away. She turned off the highway when she saw a sign that read, "Fuel and Market, open 24 hours. The building stood alone by the edge of the woods, its old neon sign flickering under the weight of the rain. Maya pulled into the lot and parked, heart racing. Something inside told her to go, now. Fast dot, she grabbed Lily and bolted from the car, shielding her daughter with her coat. They reached the front door and pushed inside. A bell jingled faintly overhead, almost drowned by the sound of the storm. The place was dim and dusty, shelves lined with faded snacks, a single humming fridge, and behind the counter, an elderly black man in a heavy flannel jacket, reading a crossword under weak fluorescent light. His skin was wrinkled like old bark, and his eyes, hidden behind silver-rimmed glasses, were sharp and still. He looked up slowly. His gaze fell on the wet, terrified woman holding a child. Then on the bruise darkening her cheekbone. "You all right, miss?" he asked, his voice deep and calm, like a slow-moving river. She clutched Lily tighter. Her lips parted, but for a moment, no sound came out. Then, finally, "No." The man nodded. He put down his pen. "Come behind the counter, right now." She hesitated for less than a second, then moved. The man stood and walked toward the door, locking it with a solid click. He flipped the sign to closed. A second later, headlights cut through the storm outside. A black pickup truck screeched into the lot, its tires screeching across the wet pavement. Maya dropped to the floor behind the counter, breathing fast, heart slamming against her ribs. The man, Earl, as she'd soon learn, stayed standing, tall and unmoved, watching. The pickup truck door burst open. Her husband, his soaked figure, charged toward the door, fists pounding the glass. "Open the door, old man," he roared. "She's my wife. She took my daughter." Earl didn't flinch. "She says she's not all right. That means I don't open the door. You don't know what the hell she's done." "I don't need to," Earl said, voice steady. "I can smell fear when it walks into my store. She didn't come here by accident." Inside, Maya's arms tightened around Lily. The little girl buried her face in her mother's chest. Her husband's fists kept slamming the glass. "You call the police. You'll regret it," he threatened. "I didn't say I'd call the police," Earl replied. He pressed a silent button under the register. "But I might have already done it." The man paused, then slowly, too calmly, he stepped back. He looked through the glass, searching, and when his eyes locked with Maya's, hidden behind the counter, he smiled, not kindly, not remorsefully, a slow, cold smile. And then, he walked away, just disappeared into the storm. Maya didn't breathe for a full minute. When the parking lot was empty again, Earl turned to her. "You got a name?" "Maya, I'm Earl," he said, offering her his hand. "You're not safe here. Come upstairs." Earl's apartment above the store was small, cluttered but warm. It smelled like black coffee, leather, and old wood. A faded photo of a young soldier in uniform sat framed on the table beside a worn-out armchair. He handed Maya a towel. "Dry the little one. There's soup on the stove. Eat." She didn't ask how he knew they hadn't eaten in days. Maya fed Lily first, then sat cross-legged on the floor, slowly spooning the broth into her own mouth, her hands still trembling. Earl stood by the window, eyes scanning the empty lot below. "You got family?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "No one I can call. No one left." He didn't respond, just nodded, like he understood more than she was saying. "You staying here tonight?" he said after a while. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "I know enough," he replied. Hours later, when Lily had fallen asleep in Earl's bed, Maya sat alone at the table, clutching a chipped mug of tea. Earl poured himself a small bourbon, then sat across from her. "What happened?" he asked. Maya stared into her tea, then started to speak, slowly at first, then all at once. "The jealousy, The threats, the first time he slapped her, the time she lied to the ER nurse, the way he screamed when Lily cried too long, the shove that sent her into the cabinet last night. He said I couldn't survive without him, she whispered. He said no one else would want me. Earl didn't look away. His hands were folded in front of him. Steady. You're wrong about no one wanting you, he said. And he's wrong about you surviving. Maya looked up. Her eyes glistened. Why are you helping me? Earl took a long sip of his drink, then glanced at the photo on the wall. My daughter ran to, he said softly, but not fast enough. A lump formed in Maya's throat. She died. She asked. Earl's jaw tightened. She disappeared. And I never found out what really happened. At midnight, Earl got a phone call. He answered in the kitchen. Keeping his voice low, he said only 2 words. I see. Then he hung up. His face was different now, harder, focused. What is it? Maya asked, stepping forward. Earl looked at her with those stormy eyes. That man, your husband, he said quietly. He's not just angry, he's powerful. He owns the cops around here. Maya's blood ran cold. Then where can we go? Earl didn't hesitate. We disappear. The man with the burned scar, the rain had stopped. But the silence it left behind felt heavier than the storm. Maya stood by the window of Earl's tiny upstairs apartment, watching the mist roll over the streetlights below. Her arms were wrapped tightly around her body, the bruises on her skin still pulsing. Inside, Lily slept peacefully on Earl's cat, unaware that the world around her was shifting again. Earl came back up the stairs, holding a folded map and a steaming cup of tea. Drink this, he said, setting the cup on the table. You'll need it. We leave at dawn. Maya turned to him, eyebrows raised. Where are we going? Earl tapped the map. There's a friend, 43 miles west, used to run with the Marines. Lives off-grid now, builds bikes and raises goats, but he's the kind of man who don't ask questions. Name's Harlan. She hesitated. Will he help us? Earl gave a quiet laugh. Helped me disappear once. Owes me a debt that goes back decades. Maya slowly nodded, though her mind was racing. What about Lily? She's just a baby. That's why we have to go, Earl said. Your husband won't stop. A man like that, the kind that smiles after breaking someone, he'll come back, smarter, quieter, more dangerous. Maya sat down, staring at her reflection in the tea. I thought I married a good man. You married a mask, Earl said gently. Now you're seeing the face underneath. She didn't speak for a long time. Then, quietly, why does this feel like my fault? Earl's voice was firmer now. Because pain makes people forget who caused it. The sun rose behind a wall of fog. Earl moved quickly, packing a few supplies into the trunk of his old Impala. Blankets, water, canned food, an extra gas can. Maya dressed Lily in a hoodie 2 sizes too big. Earl handed her a backpack with a few of Lily's things. A stuffed lion, a bottle, some crackers. Once we're out of the city, there's a back route through Deerfield Forest, Earl explained. As he started the engine, police don't patrol it. Too isolated. Maya sat in the passenger seat. Lily nestled against her chest, sucking her thumb. The silence in the car felt safer than it should have. She didn't trust it. They had only been driving for 20 minutes when Earl slowed the car. There was a truck on the side of the road, engine running, door wide open. A man stood in front of it, waving them down. Tall, wearing a jacket too big for his frame, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. Don't stop, Maya whispered. Keep going. But Earl pulled to a slow crawl. His eyes narrowed. I know that walk. The man turned slightly. Even from the car, Maya saw it. A deep, angry scar ran down the left side of his neck like melted wax. The man approached. Earl, he said, stepping into the headlights. Earl exhaled. Harlan. Harlan's handshake was firm, but his eyes scanned Maya and Lily immediately. No smile, just awareness. You brought more trouble than I expected, he muttered. More trouble means more urgency, Earl said. Harlan nodded once. Follow me. 10 more miles. The drive to Harlan's place twisted through dense trees and gravel paths. When they arrived, Maya couldn't believe it. A cabin stood tucked between thick oaks, chickens clucking lazily out back, and a red barn hiding what looked like a small garage. Inside, it smelled of cedar and motor oil. Tools hung on the walls. A radio played soft jazz in the corner. You can stay here 2 nights, Harlan said. No more. That's enough, Earl replied. That night, Maya lay awake on a cot in the corner while Lily slept beside her. Earl and Harlan talked quietly. At the kitchen table, voices low but urgent. "I found something," Harlan said, "about the husband." Maya sat up slowly. Earl turned to her. "You should hear this." Harlan pulled out a folder, thick, weathered, full of printed pages and photographs. "He's not just some abusive husband," Harlan said, flipping through the pages. "Your guy, Thomas Blaine, was part of a real estate ring. Shady deals, forged contracts, displaced dozens of families. And now, he's under federal investigation." Maya blinked. "What?" Earl added. "Your escape might have exposed him. That's why he's hunting you." "But I didn't tell anyone." "You didn't have to," Harlan said. "He doesn't know what you know. That's what makes you dangerous." Maya's stomach turned. "His reach goes deep. Cops, banks, records. But there's one thing men like him fear." She looked up. "What public exposure?" Harlan said. "Evidence. People like him build walls. You knock down one, the whole thing collapses." Maya glanced at Lily. "What can I even do? I'm just broken." Earl leaned forward. "No, you're waking up." The next morning, they planned to head farther west, but Earl's car was missing. Gone. So was Harlan's truck, and on the steps of the cabin, a Polaroid. Maya picked it up with trembling hands. It was a photo of Lily. Sleeping in last night's clothes. A message was written across the bottom in black marker. "Time's up, come home alone." She stared at it, frozen. Behind her, Earl whispered, "He's been here." And Harlan added grimly, "He's not playing anymore." End of part 2. Next part 3, the phone call at 3:17 a.m. "Shall I begin writing part 3 now?" You said. "No, write part 3, and part 3 will be minimum 800 words. ChatGPT said. "Absolutely." Here's part 3 of the story. Elderly black man rescues mum. What happens next shocks all. Continuing from the cliffhanger, Maya finds a Polaroid of her sleeping daughter, with a chilling message from her abusive husband. Part 3, the phone call at 3:17 a.m. Word count, approximately 840. Maya's knees buckled. She would have collapsed if Earl hadn't caught her. The photo trembled in her hand. Lily's tiny face, peaceful, unaware, captured by someone who had to have been standing close, inches away, while they all slept inside the cabin. That meant he had been inside. "He was here," Maya whispered. "Inside this house." Earl took the photo gently from her fingers and examined it. Polaroid means quick, no digital trail. He's covering his tracks. Harlan stepped onto the porch, jaw tight. The barn lock's been broken. He was in the garage too. Maya could barely breathe. Her mind raced. How had she not heard anything? She'd slept beside Lily. How could he have taken a photo and left it, without waking her? "Unless he drugged us," she said hoarsely. Harlan looked up sharply. "You sure?" My head feels slow, like I'm wading through fog." Earl nodded grimly. "We ate last night. That stew you made." Harlan stood there, stunned. "You think I—" "No," Earl interrupted. "He poisoned your food too. Came in and laced something. Maybe while you were outside checking the water lines. He's calculating." "He's not just angry anymore, he's planning." Maya's head dropped into her hands. "He had Lily. He could have taken her. But he didn't," Earl said firmly. "He left a message instead. He wants control. He wants you to come to him. Alone," she muttered, staring at the words on the Polaroid. "He thinks I'll give myself up if I think it's the only way to keep Lily safe." Earl's voice was cold steel. "Then he doesn't know who he's messing with." That night, they barricaded the windows. Harlan rigged motion sensors with tripwires and bells around the perimeter. Maya sat near the fire with a blanket around her shoulders, her eyes locked on Lily, who was finally starting to stir. "She's okay," Earl said softly, kneeling beside her. "But for how long?" Maya whispered. "He's getting closer. He's inside our walls. He left a message instead of taking her, because he's trying to scare me into running back to him. Or trap you," Earl added. "Make it look like you were unstable, that you abandoned her." The fire crackled between them. "I can't lose her," Maya said, voice shaking. "I've already lost everything else." "You haven't lost yourself," Earl said. "And I swear to you, we're not letting him take her." A silence stretched between them. Then Harlan's phone rang. No one moved. He checked the screen. No number. He answered anyway. "Hello, static." Then, a voice low, icy. "Tell Maya I'm done being patient." The line cut. Earl grabbed the phone. No trace, no recording. Maya was shaking. He knows we're still here. At exactly 3:17 a.m., Maya's own phone buzzed for the first time in 2 days. One message, one video. She didn't want to press play, but her hands did it anyway. It started with Lily, sitting on a couch, eating cereal, a TV blaring cartoons behind her. Then the camera panned slowly to Thomas, her husband, wearing a casual smile, holding a cup of coffee. "Good morning, sunshine," he said to the camera. "Thought you might want to see she's okay. Look at our baby. Still perfect, still safe." Maya's breath caught in her throat. Thomas leaned closer to the lens. "You've made this difficult, Maya, but I'm giving you a way out. One chance." His smile vanished. "Come to me by tomorrow night. Alone. You know the house. I'll be waiting. If you bring them." He leaned even closer, eyes hard as ice. "I make a different video." The screen went black. Maya screamed and threw the phone across the room. Earl picked it up silently, replayed the last few seconds, studied the couch, the lighting, the cereal box, the background sounds. "Old place," he muttered. "Not your home. That's not your couch." "No," Maya said, voice trembling. "That's his grandfather's lake cabin. We're outside Meriden Ridge, 40 minutes from here." Harlan groaned. "That's deep country. Bad signal. No cops. No one'll hear you scream out there." Earl turned to Maya. "We go in, we get Lily, and we end this." Maya wiped her eyes. "You heard him. He said come alone." "If he sees you, he won't," Earl said. "Because you are going in alone, just not the way he expects." The next day, they prepared. Maya, dressed in her old clothes, the ones she used to wear when she was still his wife. Clothes that made her look smaller, fragile, familiar. Earl gave her a tiny mic taped beneath her bra strap, a GPS chip inside a necklace. "You go in," he said, "and you keep him talking. The more he talks, the more he reveals. He'll be watching for cops, not for two old ghosts sneaking through the back." Harlan loaded a shotgun. "I'll take the ridge. Earl goes through the tree line. Once you give the signal, we get Lily out." Earl finished. Maya stood still, staring at her reflection in the cabin's mirror. She didn't recognize the woman looking back. That woman wasn't broken anymore. She was becoming dangerous. As dusk fell, Maya stepped out alone into the woods, toward the cabin by the lake. Each step felt heavier than the last. She was walking straight into the monster's den, but she wasn't walking in as a victim anymore. She was walking in as a mother, and a storm was coming. End of Part 3. Next, Part 4. The Trap in the Cabin. Shall I begin writing? Part 4 now. You said, no, write Part 4, and Part 4 will be minimum 800 words, ChatGPT said. Here is Part 4 of the story. Elderly black man rescues mom. What happens next shocks all. Continuing from the cliffhanger, Maya walks alone toward the cabin where her husband is holding her daughter. Ready to end this. Part 4. The Trap in the Cabin. Word count, approximately 880. The woods swallowed her. Thick branches clawed at her sleeves. Every twig that cracked beneath her feet made her flinch. But Maya didn't stop. The sky above was bruised purple. Dusk wrapped itself around the trees like smoke. She could hear the lake ahead, soft waves lapping against the shore. The wind whispered through the pines, as if trying to warn her. She walked carefully, her heartbeat syncing with her footsteps. 1, 2, don't look back. Taped beneath her shirt, the hidden mic pressed gently against her chest. Earl's voice had echoed in her head all day. You go in alone, but we won't be far. You give the signal, and we end this. She reached the clearing. There it stood, the cabin. It looked smaller than she remembered. The windows were dark, no lights inside, but smoke curled from the chimney, and a truck sat parked near the front steps. She stepped out of the trees and walked toward the door, her hands shaking, her eyes scanning every shadow. Before she could knock, it creaked open, and there he stood. Thomas. Hair neatly combed, fresh shirt, that same warm, empty smile she'd once fallen for. Maya, he said, as if she were just returning home from the grocery store. Her throat tightened. She gave a small nod and stepped inside. The warmth hit her like a trap. It smelled like coffee and lemon. Cleaner, always his favorite combination. On the coffee table sat a bowl of cereal, half eaten. Lily's pink blanket was folded neatly on the couch. But Lily wasn't there. Where is she? Maya asked, her voice calm but tight. Thomas shut the door behind her. Safe in the back room sleeping. But she's had a stressful day, thanks to you. Maya stood her ground. I came like you asked, alone. Thomas stepped closer, eyes studying her. Do you think I'm a monster? He asked, almost playfully. Is that what you tell people? I tell them the truth, she said softly. He laughed. Maya, you're not exactly a saint yourself. Her jaw tightened. Where's my daughter? He tilted his head. You'll see her, once we clear a few things up. She glanced at the walls. The windows were nailed shut. No cell signal, no landline in sight. Thomas noticed. No phone, no signal, no Earl, no cops. Just you and me, like it used to be. He walked into the kitchen and returned with 2 mugs of tea. Sit, he said. Let's talk like grown-ups. Maya didn't move. He smirked. Still stubborn. That's always been your flaw. He handed her a mug. Drink. I'm not thirsty. Thomas's smile faded. You're shaking. I'm not scared of you anymore. He leaned closer, voice low. You should be. Outside, deep in the woods, Earl lay flat on his belly behind a log, watching the cabin through binoculars. Harlan crouched beside him with a scope and earpiece. No visual on the kid yet. Harlan murmured. Earl tapped the mic. Maya, keep him talking. We need the location of the girl. Then you say the phrase. Inside, Maya sat, unmoving, holding the untouched tea. Why did you really bring me here? She asked. Thomas sat across from her, tilting his head. I didn't want you dead, Maya, he said. I wanted you grateful. I gave you everything. A house, a family, my name. You also gave me bruises, she said, and a daughter too. Scared to cry when you yelled. He rolled his eyes. She's fine. No, Thomas, she's not fine. She hasn't laughed in weeks. She barely speaks. She flinches when men raise their voices. I raise you, Maya, he shouted suddenly, slamming his mug on the table. Without me, you'd still be a waitress in that greasy diner, begging for tips. Maya stood slowly, calmly, and without me, she said, you're just a coward with a control problem. Thomas froze. She took a breath. Where is Lily? He stared at her for a long second, then gestured toward the hallway. Second door on the left, he said. Maya didn't move. Not yet. She looked at him directly and said the words Earl told her to say. I want to see her smile again. Outside, Earl heard it through the receiver. That's it, he said, standing. Let's move. Harlan grabbed the gear. Back entrance, basement window. As they crept through the shadows, toward the rear of the cabin, Earl's mind raced. They had one shot. Inside. Maya moved carefully down the hallway. The floorboards creaked softly. Second door on the left. She opened it, and there she was, Lily asleep, clutching her lion, a lullaby still playing on a loop from a small speaker. Maya's chest nearly gave out from relief. She stepped inside, dropped to her knees, and held her daughter tightly, burying her face in Lily's hair. Mummy's here, she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. We're going home. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her, but she felt them. Then, a cold hand on her shoulder. She turned. Thomas, holding a knife. End of part 4. Next, part 5. What Earl did in that moment. Would you like me to continue with part 5 now? You said, no, write part 5, and part 5 will be minimum 800 words. ChatGPT said, absolutely. Here is part 5 of the story. Elderly black man rescues mum. What happens next shocks all. Picking up from the cliffhanger, Maya finds Lily asleep, but Thomas appears behind her holding a knife. Part 5. What Earl did in that moment. Word count, approximately 8. Maya didn't scream. She didn't cry or beg. She simply shifted her body slightly, placing herself between Lily and the blade. Thomas's hand trembled, not with hesitation, but rage. I told you, he said in a low growl, to come alone. I knew you'd bring someone. You'd always underestimate me. Maya stared straight into his eyes. Then why didn't you kill me the second I walked through the door? Thomas flinched, a tiny crack in his mask, because part of him didn't want to. He didn't want to kill her. He wanted to own her. You think you've won, he said, pacing in a slow, tight circle, knife gleaming under the dim light. You think Earl can protect you forever? That washed-up old man. He's nothing. Maya's voice was steady now. Then why are you afraid of him? Thomas stopped, turned. I'm not afraid of anyone. From the hallway, a floorboard creaked. Thomas whipped his head around, but before he could turn fully, crack, the bedroom door exploded open. Earl hit him like a freight train, slamming Thomas against the wall with a force that shook the floor. The knife clattered to the ground and slid beneath the dresser. Thomas roared, swinging wildly, catching Earl in the ribs with an elbow. But Earl didn't let go. He pushed harder, forcing Thomas back with every inch of muscle left in his aging body. "I ain't nothing," Earl growled through gritted teeth. "Boy, I buried men tougher than you before you ever learned to tie your shoes." Thomas reached for Earl's throat, but Earl ducked and slammed him backward again, this time into the window. The glass cracked but held Dot in the corner. Maya scooped Lily into her arms and backed away. Thomas twisted, grabbed a lamp, and smashed it against Earl's side. The bulbs shattered, sparks flew. Earl staggered. Thomas lunged. Boom! The shotgun blast shattered the hallway silence. Thomas froze mid-charge. His eyes widened. Then slowly, his body crumpled to the ground. Behind him, in the doorway, Harlan lowered the barrel of his old Remington. "Still got it," he muttered. Earl gasped, holding his ribs. "Next time, you fire before I get punched." Harlan shrugged. "Didn't want to mess up your rhythm." 10 minutes later, the sirens could be heard down the mountain. Harlan had driven into town as soon as Maya said the code phrase. He found the only officer not owned by Thomas, a state trooper named Reed Hood, just returned from leave and hated crooked cops with a passion. When they arrived, Thomas was alive, barely. He groaned from the floor, blood soaking through his shoulder. Lily had been wrapped in Maya's jacket, her eyes open now, but calm. She reached for her mother's face. "Mummy, is the bad man gone?" Maya kissed her forehead. "Yes, baby, he's gone." The ambulance took Thomas under armed guard. State troopers swarmed the cabin. Maya sat outside on the porch steps, Earl beside her, holding an ice pack to his ribs. She looked at him. "You didn't have to do that." "I did," he said. "Because no one did it for my daughter. I swore. If I ever got the chance to help someone else's, I wouldn't fail again." She stared at the trees in the distance, the lake, the horizon. "What happens now?" she asked. "You testify," Earl said. "You hand over everything, the threats, the bruises, the Polaroid, the video messages. Let them see who he really is." "I'll be dragged through the mud," she murmured. "You already walked through hell," he replied. "Now you walk out of it." Maya's hand tightened around his. "I'm scared." "That just means you still care." She exhaled, then turned to him. "I used to think being strong meant staying, taking it, enduring." Earl looked at her and said gently, "Being strong means knowing when to leave and when to fight back." Weeks later, Maya stood in a courthouse wearing the same coat she'd run away in, but she wasn't hiding anymore. Thomas sat handcuffed between two federal agents. His lawyer whispered furiously in his ear. The courtroom was full. Press, families, lawyers, strangers. They'd uncovered everything. The real estate fraud, the abuse, the missing money, the intimidation tactics. But most of all, they'd seen Maya's courage. She testified clearly, without shaking. She told them about the nights she cried in silence, the mornings she covered bruises with makeup, the way her voice used to tremble any time someone said his name. And she told them what changed. "I didn't run because I was afraid," she said to the jury. "I ran because I finally knew I was worth saving." When it was over, she walked out of the courtroom holding Lily's hand. Reporters rushed to her. Cameras flashed, but she kept walking, not because she was running this time, but because she was finally free. That night, back at Earl's place, they sat on the porch again. 3 chairs, 1 sunset. Harlan cracked open 2 beers. Earl took one. Maya took the other. Lily was asleep upstairs. Maya looked at the man who'd saved her. "Why did you really help me, Earl?" He didn't answer right away. He watched the sky shift from gold to gray. Then he said quietly, "Because when I lost my daughter, I promised myself I'd save the next one who asked." She nodded, eyes stinging. "You kept your promise." End of part 5. Next, part 6. The letter she wrote a year later, ready for the final part. Shall I begin part 6 now? You said, no. Write part 6, and part 6 will be minimum 800 words, ChatGPT said. Here is the final part. Part 6 of the story. Elderly black man rescues mom. What happens next shocks all. Continuing from Maya's courtroom testimony and Earl's quiet promise. Part 6. The letter she wrote a year later. Word count. Approximately 890 a year had passed. The leaves had changed again. Orange and gold like fire across the hills. Earl's porch. still creaked the same way when you stepped on the third plank. The coffee still brewed strong and bitter every morning, and Maya still came by every Sunday afternoon with Lily, now taller, louder, and always carrying something for Earl, a drawing, a joke, a cupcake. But this Sunday, Maya came alone. Lily was at a friend's birthday party, her first real party. Since the trial, Maya had promised she wouldn't stay long, but something in her hand suggested otherwise. It was a sealed envelope, worn edges, no return address, just Earl's name written in careful cursive. He raised an eyebrow as she handed it to him. "What's this?" "Something I needed to write before I could move on," Maya said softly. "You don't have to read it now." But Earl already had the letter opened. And with the afternoon sun dipping behind the trees, he began to read. "Dear Earl, I don't know how to thank you for something that saved my life. 100 times I've tried, but the words never felt enough. So I wrote this instead. When I first walked into your store that night, I didn't think anyone could help me. I was scared. I was ashamed. I believed the lies he fed me, that I was worthless, broken, invisible. But you didn't ask me to explain. You didn't judge me. You saw me. You saw someone worth helping, even when I couldn't see that myself. You stood between me and danger more than once, literally. You took punches meant for me. You risked your life for a woman you barely knew, and in doing so, you became the kind of father I never had. You taught me that silence isn't strength, that walking away isn't weakness, that survival isn't enough. We're meant to live, not just endure. And you showed Lily what a real man looks like. Patient, brave, steady. She still asks about your flannel shirts. Says you smell like grandpa trees and stories. I hope you know what that means. Every time she laughs now, I think of the night you pulled me from the fire. Not just from Thomas's hands, but from the belief that I didn't matter. You rewrote my story when I had almost given up. I testify at women's shelters now. I tell my story to others. I speak so that someone else might find the courage to run, like I did. And I always mention the man who didn't hesitate when I knocked on the door. That man is you. I owe you everything. But more than that, I respect you. And I want you to know, you made a difference. One woman, one child, one life pulled from the edge. That might not sound like much to the world, but to us, you were the world. Love always." My Earl folded the letter carefully and sat in silence. He stared out at the woods, the quiet, the stillness. His hands, calloused and weathered, trembled slightly as he rubbed his thumb along the edge of the page. Maya watched him. "You okay?" He cleared his throat. "You wrote that all by yourself?" "I did," she said. "One tear-soaked night at 3 a.m. I didn't know how else to say thank you." He looked at her. "You didn't have to, but I'm glad you did." She smiled. He added, "You saved yourself, Maya. I just opened the door." "No," she said. "You didn't just open a door. You gave me something to walk toward." Later that night, Maya walked through her small apartment, tucking Lily into bed. The girl clutched a teddy bear. Earl had carved her name into its wooden tag himself. "Mummy," Lily said sleepily, "did you love Mr. Earl before we met him?" Maya smiled. "No, baby, but sometimes love doesn't come before the rescue. Sometimes it's the rescue that teaches you how to love." Lily yawned. "He's like a superhero." "Better than that," Maya whispered. "He's real." 2 months later, Earl passed away peacefully in his sleep. They found him in his favorite chair, an open book in his lap, the letter from Maya placed on the table beside him. The fire had burned low, and a cup of tea sat untouched nearby. He'd never married again after losing his daughter, never had grandchildren of his own, but he left the world knowing he'd become exactly what his daughter would have wanted him to be, a man who showed up when it mattered most. Epilogue. 6 years later, small plaque hangs outside the front door of a quiet women's shelter in the town of Fairbridge. It reads, "The Earl Johnson House, a safe place to begin again. Dedicated to the man who chose to protect instead of judge. A stranger once, a hero forever." Inside, Maya works with a team of counselors, helping women rebuild. Lily now runs through the halls, coloring the walls with joy. Some nights, when the wind rustles through the trees outside, Maya steps onto the porch. She looks at the stars, and she whispers, "Thank you." The end.